So thank you for joining us today. It's a very hot afternoon here in Hamilton, about 30 degrees and humid. So it's not always snowy here, even though that might be the image that you might have of Canada, but in the summers it does get quite hot. And today we are going to really talk about some of the supports that are available to help you and really introduce us, the staff that are here to support you, and talk about health insurance and a few other things. But we would like this webinar to be interactive. So we do encourage you to ask questions through the Q&A session. And so at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little button that says Q&A, which is where you're able to ask questions. We would request that if you do have multiple questions, please just ask them one at a time. Don't list a whole bunch in one question, just break them up. And as well, just be aware that today, there's a lot of topics that we're going to cover, but there are some topics that we're not going to talk about. And so we will be referring you to some other webinars that are coming up where we will address things like study permits and stuff like that. So without further ado, we will get started. Oh yes, one thing before we sort of introduce the team, what we're trying to do is really create a community for our international students. And so if you are looking to connect with other students from your home country or your country of residence, what you can do is send an email to iss@mcmaster.ca with your student number, your name, your McMaster email address, and your country of residence. And what we're hoping to do at the end of June or early July, sort of compile all of this list of students from various countries to help you sort of connect with each other before classes start. So next we're going to sort of meet your support team that are here to help you. So my name is Andrew Staples, and I am the Student Success Coach for international students. And essentially, I'm here to help you during your transition into McMaster, as well as the entire time you're here. And so I can speak with you, if you've got any personal questions, maybe some academic concerns, maybe you just don't know who to talk to. You're not really sure which service can help you, things like that. You can always reach out to me, and I'll either give you the answer, but if I don't have the answer, I'll be able to refer you to the appropriate resource and support. So next, we're going to invite Yufei in grad studies to join us.
Thank you, Andrew. So I am the International Graduate Students Coordinator, and I am located at the School of Graduate Studies. My role is to support all international graduate students throughout their student life. So that means before they get here or before they start studying until they graduate. And my job includes planning programming that's based on international student needs and advocate for international student needs as well. And I work very closely with the International Grad Student Association. And I also connect with students to relevant services and resources that are available to them.
Hi everyone, my name is Anna Pereira and I am the Undergraduate Student Program Coordinator. Although my title is under graduate students, I also connect with grad students throughout my different tasks. So one of the things that I do is I administer the UHIP plan, which is the University Health and Insurance Plan for all international students. Also throughout the year, we do lots of events, socials, workshops, information sessions, webinars now in this case, and I basically help as well for your transition into McMaster and into Canada through different programming. We also have an immigration consultant who is on staff. His name is Anthony, and he's there to support with immigration-related questions or concerns. So he is not there to apply for you or complete any application for you, but instead he is there to guide you and navigate the immigration system. So many questions that he answers on a daily basis would be about study permit extensions, advising on working on and off campus, also about co-op work permits, TRVs, and other travel documents like ETAs, and then later on applying for the postgrad work permit, and also inviting your parents to come visit you or to come to your graduation, and then eventually some information on becoming PR if that is the pathway that you are heading into.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Jemphy. I'm the Program Assistant for the Global Experience Program, and I'm presenting to you today not only as a staff member, but also an alumna from MAC. My current position at the Student Success Center involves engaging folks in the McMaster Exchange Program. So that's the program that allows students to do a short-term exchange abroad with one of our international partners across 30 countries. I also assist with the Global Experience Program, which helps work and volunteer abroad as well.
Okay, great. So now that you sort of know who we are, we're here to support you. We wanted to talk about what some of those supports are. And so we know for all of you, you're probably very excited to start at McMaster. We think there might be some of you joining us from Canada, but we think probably quite a few of you are currently out of the country. But what we'd really like to encourage you to do is take a live tour of the campus. And so this is something that's very new this year, that you can actually do a virtual walk around. So it's available every Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at various times. And you are able to sign up for one of these sessions, and we're actually going to have a tour guide walk around campus with you and sort of point things out. So this is sort of a neat way for you to familiarize yourself with campus prior to arriving. And next, we're going to invite Yufei back to talk about some of the grad programming.
Thank you, Andrew. So in preparation for your start time, we have a variety of events planned throughout August and September, and they will be conducted on Zoom or other digital platforms, so you don't have to be here in person to attend them. The dates will be announced as they're determined, and some topics we will be discussing will be teaching in the Canadian classroom. This will be especially helpful for TAs, and it will be hosted by the Byron McPherson Institute. Of course, as grad students, your research skills in the Canadian context is extremely important. So the library will be hosting workshops on this, and as well as providing resources. Also, building professional relationships, because we know that building a really effective relationship with your supervisor is particularly important, especially when you're here for your PhD program and you're interacting with your supervisor almost on a daily basis. And of course, health and wellness resources to help you study and to help you have a happy life here. And we recognize that it's really important, especially nowadays, for students to connect and make connections, and just to get to know other new students who are in the same situations as you, and also our current students. So we will have social events where we will be connecting with connecting students with other international students. We're thinking of doing something fun, something that everyone can participate in. And also we recognize equity and diversity is one of our strengths. So we will have special events for 2S LGBTQ students, and for them to have a very safe and open platform to connect with each other. We also have a variety of student clubs that is housed under our Grad Student Association. So Grad Studies will be partnering with the Grad Association for students to have an opportunity to learn about these clubs and possibly participate in them if they're interested.
Thank you, Yufei. So moving on to Welcome Week. So there is something that's called Welcome Week, and this is a week of events for undergraduate students. Although this year we are online, we are still working on a Welcome Week to welcome the class of 2024 to McMaster. So usually this is a unique and memorable student experience focused on learning, support, and community building, which is their priority. Faculty, staff, and students work together to provide with a successful transition to first-year students during a memorable Welcome Week experience. So more information will be provided to you throughout the summer as plans are confirmed. So as mentioned, although it is an online fall term, staff and students are still working for a Welcome Week experience so that first-year students do feel welcomed and do feel a part of the community, even if they're physically not in Canada at this time. Our office also does some events for orientation and transition on the undergraduate side. So we will have an orientation, and that usually happens the first week of September. So again, you'll get information on all these events through your McMaster email. So do make sure that your McMaster email is active once you accept your offer, because that is where we will be communicating lots of events and information that you need to know. So alongside the orientation, September is a pretty busy month, September and October, I would say, with lots of events and workshops that we have for students. And again, like I said, that will not change this year because we are online. So we are hard at work making some fun social events so that we can stay connected and again, make that first term as enjoyable as possible for all students. We also have some peer-to-peer programming. So on the undergraduate side, we have the International Student Buddy Program. So this is a program where you will be applying to be paired with an upper year domestic or international student. And basically you're matched based on country of origin or languages spoken. If none of those are matched, then they'll be based on hobbies. So there is an application that you will fill out. It's a very basic application just to get a little bit more information about you. Emails for those applications inviting you to apply will be sent out probably July 3rd, around there, the beginning of July. I do encourage you to apply so you can be paired with an upper year mentor or buddy, and they're basically there to help navigate your transition to McMaster and to Canada. So again, not physically transitioning at this point, but who knows if the winter term will be in person, and then you can also get some more information on how to physically transition into Hamilton. So at the graduate level, there's actually a new program that's being started for this year. It's the International Grad Navigators, and Yufei and her team will be sending out some more information to grad students on what that is and how that will work in the coming weeks and months. Next.
We also have webinars. So I'm not sure. Am I muted, Anna? No, okay, I'm good. And so I'm not sure if this is your first webinar that you've joined, or maybe you've joined some others. And so this is just one of a long series of webinars that we have throughout the summer. So one that I see some questions that are coming in about study permits and things like that. So the one that you want to attend, if you do have questions about your study permit, is going to be probably the next one on June 18th. After that, we do have one about life in Hamilton. Hamilton's going to be home for you for maybe 16 months, maybe 4 years, maybe even longer. And so we want to do our best to sort of prepare you for what that life is going to be like. And then there's going to then be separate webinars specifically for grad students and for undergrad students. And so if you're a graduate student, there's going to be one specifically about what it's like to be a grad student at Mac, important information that you need to know about, such as TAs and like health insurance and that kind of thing, as well as different resources and support specific for grad students. And then there's also a really fun one, which is a grad student Q&A. And so that's really open for you to just connect with other upper year international students and ask really anything to learn about what their experience has been like coming to Canada and coming to McMaster. And likewise, for undergrad students, we also have specific ones for you. So there's one specifically about the academic transition from high school to university, because we know that that transition can be difficult for students, and learning a bit about what is Canadian academic culture and what are those expectations. So that's what that one's going to be focused on. And just like grad students, we're also having a Q&A for undergrad students where you can ask upper year undergrad students, really any question to see about their experience. So the next thing we're going to talk about is health insurance. So we're going to bring Anna back to provide you more info on UHIP.
Thanks, Andrew. Great. So UHIP stands for the University Health Insurance Plan. And the plan coverage is from September 1st to August 31st of any given year. It actually starts on the 10th of August. So normally, if we were in person this year, students will start to arrive to campus and to Hamilton around the middle of August. So what the UHIP plan does is it knows that students are coming in a little bit earlier, and it basically will have coverage for you from the 10th of August or later. So if you were to come any earlier, you would have to have your own private health insurance. But if you come after August 10th, then you would be covered under UHIP for no additional fee. So starting in September, the cost is $60 per month, and that equals $720 for the full 12 months of September to August. If you have a dependent, so if you have a spouse, it will be $1,440 for the 12 months for both of you. If you have a dependent and a child or more than one children, it'll be $2,160 total for the 12 months. If you have more than 2 dependents, so if you have 3 or 4 children, there is no additional cost. That is the max that the plan will charge, but it will cover your family. Or I should correct myself, dependents. It will cover your dependents. So the plan is not for mothers and fathers or brothers and sisters. It's just for spouses and children. The only exceptions in terms of the 12-month would have been for if students are exchange students or if students are coming in as visiting students and they're not here for the full 12 months because that's not the term that they have agreed to with McMaster. So there are things that UHIP does not cover. So for those things that are not covered, you have a supplementary health and dental plan. So for graduate students, it's the GSA or the QP. So you might end up with 2 different plans. If you are a TA or an RA, your dental services or dental benefits will be covered under QP. If you are just a regular grad student and you're not TAing or RAing, then you would have both health and supplementary dental coverage through the GSA plan. So for undergraduate students, MBA students, and MELT students, you have this coverage under the MSU Health and Dental Plan. And it covers things like dental services, vision services, prescription medication. If you break a leg and you need a crutch or you need like a brace, they'll all be covered under the MSU plan. Next. So that is what your UHIP card looks like. It's not a real card. It comes to you through an email from Sun Life. So it is very important that your McMaster email is active and not being forwarded to another email. I say not being forwarded to another email because, as you can see, this card does not have a photo. So it's not, it's easy to pass along from one person to the other because it just has a name. So it is very important that your McMaster email is active because there's a security feature on these emails that come from Sun Life that it will only send this email to your McMaster email. If your email is forwarded somewhere else, this email will not get forwarded to you. It will stay in your McMaster email. So once you receive this email, you'll have your card there, you just print it out and then you carry it with you at all times, and then just keep the email saved on file, because in case you lose the physical card or it gets wet or whatever it is, you still have, you're able to print out more than one copy. In terms of what you have to do to activate your UHIP, you don't do anything. Once you are a registered student of McMaster, everything happens on my end. So you're automatically enrolled into the plan and there's nothing that you have to activate. Once I enroll you, you're active. There's nothing that you have to do. You just need to wait to get this email and then you're good to go. So there are some exemptions. If you at any time during your academic career become eligible for any one of these plans that are listed here, please let me know as soon as you can so that you can be exempt from the UHIP plan. So these plans have been looked at and have been pre-approved by Sun Life as exemptions, which means that their coverage is basically the same thing as UHIP, and there is no need for you to be covered under UHIP as these plans are just as equivalent. So back to dependents. As I mentioned, dependents is your spouse and children, not any family members. And they have to be physically in Ontario with you. So if you arrive in Canada, let's say in November, and your family is not arriving till January, I can't physically add them to the plan until their foot is actually in Ontario soil. So I can only add them once they arrive in Ontario. With that said, you have 30 days to add them to the plan, because if you pass the 30 days from their arrival date, there's a $500 late fee addition charge, and also there is a retroactive charge. So back to my first example, let's say you arrive in November and they arrive with you in November, and you do not tell me that they're here until January, you will be charged $500, and the plan will go backwards and enroll your spouse or your children from November onwards. So please don't do that. If you are here, let me know so you can be adequately covered, because we don't choose to get sick. It just kind of happens. And the worst thing is for you to go to a hospital and then have a big bill when you're done with that. So to add your dependents, you simply just email me and you send me their passport photo page and their flight itinerary, your name, your student number, and then I can make those changes for you. So I think this might be my last slide, but before we move on, due to COVID, we do know that many students, or actually mostly all students, will be starting their academic year online and not necessarily in Ontario. So in late August, beginning of September, you will be receiving an email that will ask you if you are in Ontario or not. If you are not in Ontario, you will be able to not pay for the UHIP plan, as you are not eligible. You have to be in Ontario to be eligible for the plan. So that means that you will be exempt from September to December. With that said, if the travel restriction ban is lifted, if everything is great and we're all going to be back on campus in January, if you arrive in November, please do not wait until January for me to add you. The day you arrive in Ontario, please connect with me so I can add you to the UHIP plan as soon as possible. Like I said, we don't choose to get sick, and you do not want to be in a brand new country with no health insurance, as it is very expensive in Canada.
Okay, Anna, while we still have you on UHIP, we're just going to ask you a couple of questions. Sure. So when you were talking about dependents and spouses, are common law spouses considered dependents?
So common law in Canada means that you have lived together for 1 year. So if you meet that eligibility, then yes, your common law partner can be added to your UHIP plan.
Okay, and then another question, if a student might get permanent residency at some point during their first year of studies, is there a way to opt out of UHIP if they then get provincial coverage?
Yeah, so what will happen is once you become a permanent resident, you then qualify for OHIP, which is the provincial plan. But you don't qualify for OHIP the day you become a permanent resident. There is normally a 3-month waiting period for your OHIP to start. So in that circumstance, what will happen is you will go to the OHIP office. They will give you a white piece of paper that will state when your OHIP plan starts and when it ends. I will need to see that paper so that I can adjust your UHIP coverage. So basically your UHIP will terminate at the end of the month in which your OHIP starts. So like I said, just showing me a permanent residency landed slip or approval will not be sufficient to remove you from the UHIP plan. I'll actually need to see the paper from the OHIP office that states when your OHIP will start, and then you can become exempt.
Okay, great. And the last question for you, so for GSA, CUPE, health and dental plans for graduate students, is that optional? Is it included in their fees? If you could just sort of comment about that.
Sure. So the health plans are not optional because I know a lot of students say, well, you know, I haven't been to a doctor in 3 years. Well, you're moving to a different country. It gets cold here and it's a different climate. You might get sick. And like I said, it's very expensive in Ontario to get health care. So it is mandatory. Sorry, I have a dog. So he's just saying hello. Give me 1 second.
But yeah, I'll just fill in for Anna. So as a student whether you're domestic or international student, all students are required to have the GSA or MSU supplementary insurance. And so that'll cover things like dental, prescription medication, eyeglasses, that sort of stuff. So that is something that is required for you. And then as an international student, UHIP is required because that is what's going to cover sort of more of those emergency things, doctor visits.
So Andrew, I'm just going to add, sorry about that. So yes, UHIP is mandatory in all universities in Ontario. So that's not just a McMaster thing. It's for all universities in Ontario. It is mandatory. And also if you are an international student whose parents are also here, and let's say that they are working through a work permit and your parents have benefits through their work that cover you, then you might be exempt from the MSU or the GSA plan. But that's something that you'll have to provide to them to see if they can exempt you from your health and dental benefits through those plans.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anna. There's a couple more questions for you to maybe type out because they're a bit more specific. And so Anna will be able to answer those in the Q&A. I'm actually going to keep my video off because I've been told that my internet's not very good. So I do apologize for that, but hopefully this way my voice is a little bit clearer. So next we're going to talk about some of the supports that are available to you. And so the first one I wanted to mention is International Student Services. And so this is where Andrea and myself work, and UFA works very closely with us as well. And we're here really to help you with that transition to McMaster, through McMaster, beyond McMaster. We're here to support you as an international student, really regardless of what your questions are. And so that can be anything related to maybe academics, personal concerns, immigration questions, health insurance questions. And we do have a lot of different socials and educational workshops and webinars throughout the year. Another important thing, because we know that the fall is going to be online, but that doesn't mean you can't reach out to us and get one-on-one support. So we are more than happy to connect with you through Zoom or through email or whatever platform works for both of us. And so if you do need to have sort of those personal conversations or you have a more specific question, feel free to reach out to us, and we're more than happy to connect with you for that one-on-one conversation. Another really great service that I wanted to highlight is the McMaster Office for the Development of English Language Learners. I know that's a really long office name, so most people around McMaster, we just call it MODEL. And you'll soon realize at McMaster, we like to use a lot of acronyms for a lot of things. And so I apologize if we're talking about things using acronyms, we're just used to it. And, you know, very soon you'll be used to these acronyms as well. And so MODEL is free English language support for both undergraduate and graduate students. And these are, they have sort of two ways that you can get support, either through workshops or you can get one-on-one consultation. And there's several categories of help that you can get, including writing, speaking, reading, and listening. And so if English is not your first language and you are looking to improve upon it while you are studying at McMaster, please keep this in mind that there's no additional cost to this service. So it's a really, really amazing program, and everything is developed by like as a second language certified instructors. So we actually have professors working to create the content, create these workshops for you. So I really would highly recommend that you start accessing these services if English is something that you're looking for a bit of additional support with. And next we're gonna bring Anna back to talk about SAS.
Thanks, Andrew. So SAS is a Student Accessibility Services, and they offer support for students with disabilities. So when we mention disabilities, we're not referring to just physical disabilities or disabilities that are permanent. So for instance, let's say you slip on the ice during the winter months and you break your leg and you break your arm. So now you're not able to take notes in one of your classes. So you can register in with the Student Accessibility Services, and you can see if someone can take notes for you, so that you can also continue doing well in your classes. So some of the services that they provide are academic accommodations, which means that they can also help you if you need some extra time during your exams, or possibly if you need to write your exam in a separate room, not with a big crowd. Assistive technologies. So for instance, we have some students who are not able to see and who have the computers who are able to read for them. So there's different technologies that are available to help with that. There's some learning strategies, the McMaster program, note taking like I mentioned, and they also have events and workshops for students to attend as well. So we do recommend that if you think that you will benefit from this service, for you to register, and do register early, as they do get very booked up. They might ask you to provide some documentation depending on whatever it is that you're telling them that you have. And yeah, just register as soon as you can. There's an email there that you can ask for more questions. You can also check out their website, which is sas.mcmaster.ca, to see what other services they have and how they can help you. Student wellness. So we do have a student wellness center on campus, and the wellness center is made up of some doctors, some counselors. They can help you in supports in terms of medical. They also have a lot of wellness programs, webinars, there's counseling options. So these things are covered under your UHIP plan. And in terms of wellness webinars, they do lots on stress less, self-care, meditation circles. They also have nature walks, because McMaster's backyard is Coots Paradise, and it's basically lots of nature trails that you can walk around in. So normally, if you were on campus, all these services would be provided to you. They are working to see what this will look like in terms of being online. So our doctors and medical personnel are bound to who they can see in terms of giving medical advice to. So normally it's an association, and they can see people who are in Ontario. So that might be a little bit difficult if you're overseas and you're trying to get medical help from them. They might not be able to give you some medical help. So they are working to see other resources to help internationally, so that they are available for you. So like I said, right now this is still in the working process. As soon as we get closer to September, there will be more information that we will be sending to you. So just know that you will be getting support if you need it.
Thank you, Anna. So School of Graduate Studies, going back to the acronyms, we might be known as SGS in some cases. So School of Graduate Studies is where my office was physically located, and we take care of graduate students. So the structure of the schools at the grad level is a little different from undergraduate levels. Students are usually closer with their faculties, with their program, just because that their needs become so unique once you get into grad level research and grad level labs, grad level needs. So our office kind of just oversees things that are just common to master's and PhD students. We have staff member who supports the diversity and the retention of graduate studies students, and we also have someone who organizes the communications piece to all grad students. We offer support and resources in the form of our weekly newsletters. So all of the events that are relevant to grad students will be communicated through this newsletter and through email. We also hold regular events and programming. So for example, events that addresses the needs of our TAs, addresses the needs of our researchers, and programming such as the 3-minute thesis competition that's Canada-wide. So this is a once-a-year competition where McMaster participates along with all the other universities in Canada, and grad students are invited to talk about their research in 3 minutes. It's a big fun event, and you can win some prizes. We also have grad student life resources, and these are constantly in development. So currently we have a page on our website with all the resources we have developed so far, including resources for building an effective relationship with your supervisor. And like Anna mentioned earlier, we are launching a new International Grad Navigator program this summer, and we will announce it to our students in July, so please keep an eye out for that. And as well, if you have any general questions about grad studies or you just don't know where to direct your questions to, you can always email askgrad@mcmaster.ca. Thank you.
Speaking to additional supports, we have the Student Success Center. And the Student Success Center's motto or mission is to address the success and allow all students to thrive during their experience at McMaster. And it's materialized through 3 forms of development. So we have our academic support, professional development, as well as personal development. So how academic support looks like is online academic skills orientation, a writing center. And I do also want to mention that some of these services are largely provided for undergrad students. However, the writing center is an exception to that in the sense that grad students have that service as well. There's also academic coaching within academic development and the center. And what that means is that you're given the toolkit and the best practices to go about your coursework during your time at McMaster. In addition, you have professional development. So this is the opportunity to really see what it's like to navigate the employment space or landscape in Canada. So you're provided services that help you compose a cover letter, to conduct interviews and participate in interviews, as well as resumes. And there's also interview preparation, as I mentioned, and career counseling and advising. There's also the personal aspect. So that includes anything from the weekly entry, the Welcome Week entry events, student orientation and transition, as well as career exploration, peer placement programs, and an exploration of global experiences and opportunities as well. We also have the McMaster Student Union, or commonly known as the MSU. And the MSU is a student governing body composed of undergrad students. And the role or the mission of it is to represent and advocate for students and essentially to create a better student life experience at McMaster. So they have several services, and one that Anna has mentioned earlier includes the engagement or the facilitation of health and dental insurance. Also, they provide a lot of spaces for students to engage through over 300 clubs and societies on campus. And these are categorized through 5 distinct categories. So that includes academic, cultural, recreational, religious, and social issues. Similar to the MSU, we have the GSA. And so again, this is a governing body, but specifically for graduate students. So in the same idea where they're going to be advocating and representing for the improvement of student experience on campus. And they also will have various clubs and activities that grad students can participate in, and they'll facilitate different events as well.
Okay, so that sort of concludes the formal part of our presentation. So thank you everybody for joining us, but we know there are lots of questions, and so this is certainly not the end of the presentation. What we're going to do now is try to answer as many questions as we can. So I know there's been quite a few questions just in terms of study permits and what's happening with study permits. So what we are saying to all students is that regardless of the format being online for September, all students should be applying for their study permit as soon as you have that offer. And so I'll say that again, as soon as you have your offer, you should be going ahead and applying for your study permit. Even if classes are online. And then I also know there's some questions about, can we enter Canada? When can we enter Canada? These decisions aren't necessarily being made by McMaster. These are being made by the federal government. And what I can suggest to you is really, keep checking the Government of Canada's website to see what travel exemptions might be created for incoming international students. We don't have any new information to share with you at the moment, but we do expect that, you know, as the weeks and months get closer to September, there will be some changes. And so if if you have your study permit and you have your visa and the travel restrictions are lifted and classes are online, you certainly can enter Canada as long as all of those boxes have been checked. But it is a very challenging time. It's a very unsettling time, and we know that this is there's a lot of questions and uncertainty about this. So if you do have questions, specifically about your study permit, please join our June 18th study permit webinar. And I also saw that Yufei said she was going to answer a specific question about this as well. So Yufei, if you had a comment, please feel free to join in the conversation.
Yeah, it's mostly echo what you've already said about study permits and travel. And I have two questions regarding starting their program online without an approved study permit. And so from current guidelines, if you don't have a valid approved study permit before you start, the time you spent during your first term would not be counted towards your postgraduate work permit. And I know that each program has specific guidelines around these. Some programs may not even, you may not even be able to start in September if you don't have your study permit. So I would recommend to, like Andrew said, apply as soon as possible, and keep updated with the communications from your program. And also I highly recommend to attend that study permit session, because our immigration consultant, someone more knowledgeable about the government process, will be there to answer your questions.
Okay, great. And Yufei, I see that you had some other questions here. Maybe you have answered them already. There's one about some MBA specific questions.
Yeah, so the MBA specific questions is asking about student visa / student permit, and if it doesn't get approved by the time that they start, I'm assuming this person is starting in January because it's specifically asking for January. Again, I would recommend to attend the study permit session and get the process started as soon as possible.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, the study permit application is currently online and open on the Government of Canada website, and the government has indicated that they are processing study permits. And if you submitted your incomplete application without some documents, or if you just can't access some of the documents because closures in your home country, the government will not deny those applications. They will be on hold. They won't deny it because of limitations due to incomplete documents. So I would recommend to apply for it as soon as possible.
Okay, great. Thanks, Yufei. And Anna, I'm going to invite you to join, because I see you've said you're going to answer a few questions here.
Thanks, Andrew. So there are some students asking about conditional offers. So when McMaster sends out a conditional offer, once you meet the criteria and that conditional offer becomes a firm offer, they're not going to send you a new letter. You will be using that conditional offer to apply for your study permit, and that's fine. The immigration knows that universities usually just send one letter, and then students will apply and meet their conditions, and then they're good to go. So you can use your whatever letter you receive from McMaster, unless it's a rejected letter or a refusal letter, you can't use that one. But if it's an acceptance letter or a conditional offer, you can use that one to apply for your study permit. There was another question that said, if my spouse and I are both grad students at McMaster, do we apply for separate UHIP plans, or do I apply for my spouse? So each student who is active, who has a student number, will be enrolled into the UHIP plan. So even if you're married in this case and you're both students, you will both have your individual UHIP plans under your UHIP number, which is your student number. So if you guys have children, and if your children come along with you, normally they just go under the wife's UHIP, but it's not like it's cheaper having your spouse under you as a dependent or having her as the actual member. It's not economically, one's better than the other. So if they have a student number, each of them will have their own file under their own student number. In case we are not in Ontario and start online lectures, do you think we need to order necessary textbooks for courses by international shipping? So this is a great question that I actually brought up to our bookstore people yesterday. So what they basically told me is that a lot of professors are looking at ebooks that students can purchase, so that you don't actually necessarily need to ship internationally. You can just, purchase it, and then you get access to it electronically. So that is, professors are being encouraged to do that, because we do have a lot of international students who will not be in the country. But I'm sure there'll be more information sent out as soon as it becomes available. And also, once you register for courses, your professors will reach out to you directly, letting you know what your options are at that point. Also, don't be afraid to reach out to the professors. So if the professor has not sent out any information in terms of books, or maybe has listed some books that you have no access to in your country, don't feel that you are not able to connect with them, and let them know you are. So that's just later on, after you accept your offer, you register in classes, you know who the professors are. Don't be afraid to have that conversation if needed. There's another one that says, do grad students have access to the Student Wellness Center? Yes, grad students have access to the Student Wellness Center. The only students who do not have access are MBA students. So for those students, you'll have to, if you need to see a doctor, you'll be looking at more going to urgent centers or walk-in clinics for you to get medical services. And Andrew, maybe you can help me with this one. Do grad students also, are there different gyms and sport groups or activities that grad students can also tap into?
Yeah, that's a great question. So grad students definitely have access to the athletics and recreation facilities that we have. I can't think off the top of my head how many gyms we actually have on campus, but there are quite a few. There's a pool, there's an indoor rock climbing wall, squash courts, outdoor fields, track. There's all sorts of really great things that you can have access to. But again, right now, because of COVID-19 and the campus being closed, nobody has access to those currently in the summer. Not sure what it's going to be like in the fall, but certainly as a grad student you do. And we also have intramural sports that would be open for students to join. So intramurals are sort of playing for fun, playing students in various leagues available. So I see another question here about what is the annual tuition fee for the social sciences program. And so I don't know off the top of my head specifically for your program, but I think Andrea in the chat is going to put a link to the cost estimator. So if you go on that for any undergraduate, it will give you a general sense of what your tuition fees are for whichever program it is that you'll be joining. Okay, so let's see what other questions that we have here. So question about when should we enroll in courses? And so I can speak to the undergraduate piece, and then maybe you, Faye, if you want to join about the grad. So for undergraduate students, you'll be registering at some point in July. And because things a little bit. Typically registration would be happening more middle or end of June. The date exactly hasn't been announced for undergraduate students, but as soon as that has been announced, it will be communicated out to you, and you'll be self-selecting the courses for your program. So some programs, you might have a lot more options and opportunities to pick and select the type of classes you want to be taking. Other programs, your first year is fairly set up for you in the sense that you don't have as many options. But as you get into upper year classes, you can sort of pick and choose what you're interested in. And Yufei, can you just comment in terms of the course registration for grad students?
Yes, so I will share the grad student enrollment and start date page on the chat. And our current online registration starts on July 7th. And there are more information about enrollment processes and tuition on that page as well.
Okay, great, thank you. So there's also quite a few questions here I've seen just in terms of like maybe deferring and submitting transcripts, anything really to do with the admission process. So the team, Yufei, Andrea, Anna, myself, we're really here to support you like when you're here. We don't have too much say in the actual admission process, the deferral process. So what you would want to be doing if you've got questions like that, if you're an undergraduate student, you want to email the undergraduate admissions team, which is international@mcmaster.ca. And if you're a graduate student, you'll want to reach out directly to your faculty or program. Again, if you have any specific questions about your admission or about submitting your transcripts, because we know centers and things are closed around the world. So again, grad students, please reach out to your program. Undergraduate students, please email international@mcmaster.ca. So we have a question here. Can my spouse use the Wellness Center too? So the Wellness Center is only for current enrolled students only. So when you do get here, and if your spouse or other dependent does need to access medical services, we can help sort of direct you to like a walk-in clinic or something like that. If you do need that support, but the on-campus wellness center is only for currently enrolled students. Okay, Anna, I see you said you wanted to answer a question about Mac IDs, if you don't mind answering that one.
Sure. So there's been a lot of questions in terms of how to activate your Mac ID. So I did post the link on the chat. I'm just not 100% sure in terms of timing. So I don't know if you go on right now, if you can activate it, or if you have to wait until registration's open for courses. There was a question saying that they're trying to activate the Mac ID and they're asking for a barcode. I think the barcode, and anyone who's other panelists, if you know, I think the barcode is sent out in your offer letter. I think there's a number that's on there somewhere that they refer to as a barcode. I think that's what you need to use as well to activate your Mac ID.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anna. So we have a question here. Will there be a tuition discount for international students because classes have been shifted online? So as of right now, fees are remaining the same because the services and the education are continuing. So as Anna mentioned, some situations like UHIP, if you're not in the country, you might not be charged for that. And if there's a specific service maybe that is not running, I'm not sure that the details are still being worked out. We found out when classes are online at the same time you did. And so, we are trying our best to have, we would love to just be able to give you concrete answers for all of these questions. But, just remember that even though things are going to be virtual, all of the services and supports are still available to you. They're just taking a slightly different format this year.
I can answer one of the questions live. So the question is, when will be assigned to a supervisor? So we asked about the courses before enrollment. So if you're not in the thesis stream or research stream, you may not have a supervisor. If you would like advice for which courses you should enroll in, please check in with their program.
Okay, great. Thanks, Yufei. I had another question here about when do we make term payments? Andrea's right on top of this. That's great. So actually, Andrea, I think you just sent it to the panelists, not to the attendees. So you just need to change that. But Andrea's going to post a link to the different fees and deadlines. Perfect. There you go. For tuition, and so you pay per semester. You don't have to pay for your entire program up front. And generally, I believe September 25th will be the deadline for the fall 2020 term, and then January 25th would be for the winter, and May 25th for the spring summer. Okay, so I think I see there's a few questions still remaining, and so we're going to stick around to answer these questions for you. But in terms, because some of these questions I think are a little bit specific to maybe your program and things like that. So we will stay online and sort of type these answers out. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really encouraged to see so many students engaged in asking questions. I think the number one thing you can do as a new student anywhere and as an international student is please ask questions, big or small. It doesn't really matter. We are here to support you regardless of the type of question. So I'm really encouraged to see you all joining us today and asking all of these questions. That's fantastic. So thank you very much. And thank you, Anna, Andrea, and Yufei. And again, we'll stick around to sort of type the answers out for some of these questions, but this sort of concludes the webinar. So once again, thanks very much, everybody, and I hope everyone stays well and stays healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.